I sat at my kitchen table this morning watching the light crawl slowly across the floor, and it occurred to me how quiet my life has become. Not lonely, just quiet. I am 82 years old now, and when you reach this age, silence stops being something you try to escape. It becomes something you listen to. This house has heard decades of voices, arguments, laughter, footsteps rushing out the door. Now it mostly holds memories. Over 8 decades, I've watched the world reinvent itself again and again. But more than that, I've watched people leave. My parents, my siblings, friends who once felt permanent, the women who shared my bed and my worries for most of my life. They are gone now. When you grow old, you become invisible in a world that belongs to the young. You watch them hurry past, chasing futures they believe are waiting patiently for them. They ask me what it's like to be this age, or they look at me with pity as if arriving here is some kind of failure. But there is a secret about being old that no one tells you until you get here. When everything is stripped away, what remains isn't emptiness, it's clarity. If you're younger than me, listen carefully. If you're my age, sit with me for a moment. I want to tell you about what actually stays when the noise fades and the chasing stops. The first thing I learned is that money was never the foundation of my life. It only felt like it. For most of my adulthood, I measured myself by numbers, income, savings, net worth. I thought those numbers were proof that my life was solid, secure, successful. I guarded them fiercely, but at 82, I look around and realize something quietly liberating. None of that stayed. The jobs ended. The accounts changed hands. The things I worked so hard to afford were sold, donated, or forgotten. And yet, I am still here. What remains isn't what I earned, it's who I became while earning it. Money fades faster than character, faster than patience, faster than the way you treated people when no one was watching. I've learned that we never really own anyone either. Not our spouses, not our children. They were never possessions, they were visits. When I was younger, I clung tightly. I thought love meant control, protection, provision, but love is not ownership, it is presence. What remains is not who stayed forever, but who you truly saw while they were here. The love you gave does not disappear when people leave. It settles inside you, quiet, permanent. When you're young, you believe life is made of milestones. The promotion, the house, the retirement plan. You spend your days leaning forward, waiting for the real life to start. But life was never waiting at the destination. It was always happening in the middle. What remains now are not the highlights. They are the ordinary moments I barely noticed at the time. Coffee at dawn, shared meals, a hand on my shoulder. These small, forgettable moments turned out to be the only ones worth remembering. One of the hardest lessons of old age is solitude, not because it is unbearable, but because it introduces you to yourself. When the busyness ends and the people thin out, there is nowhere left to run. And many people discover too late that they never built a relationship with the one person who would remain until the end, themselves. What remains is your inner life. If you've avoided it, old age feels cruel. If you've nurtured it, old age becomes gentle. I have learned to sit with my thoughts without fear, to forgive the man I was when I didn't know better, to accept that I did the best I could with the tools I had. What remains is peace with myself. People ask me if I have regrets. Well, of course I do. But my regrets are not about money. I don't regret not earning more. I regret the times I was impatient, the times I chose being right over being kind. I regret the love I delayed expressing because I thought I had time. Being right fades quickly, kindness lasts. As the names in your phone disappear one by one, you learn this lesson with brutal clarity. If you have someone to call today, call them, not to discuss anything important, just to remind them you're glad they exist. There's a strange peace that comes from watching the world move on without needing to keep up with it. I see the young rushing past with their worries, their screens, their urgency. I used to feel left behind. Now I understand I was simply released. What remains is the role of witness. I see my grandchildren laugh and I recognize faces from long ago. I understand now that I was never meant to be the center of the story, just a chapter, and there is freedom in that. So, what remains when everything else falls away? Gratitude, not loud gratitude, quiet, steady gratitude for having been here at all, for having loved, even imperfectly, for having seen the sun rise more times than I ever expected. I am 82 years old and I am no longer afraid of having less time. Because I finally understand what time was for. If you're listening to this, don't wait decades to learn what matters more than money. Look for it now. It's already with you. In the breath you're taking, in the person beside you, in the life you're living before you rush past it. Time isn't something you manage, it's something you inhabit. And one day, sooner than you expect, you'll realize you weren't meant to fill it with accomplishments, but with attention, with presence, with love that didn't need to be earned. Thank you for sitting with me for a while, for slowing down long enough to listen. If this resonated, share it with someone you care about. Leave a comment and tell me what you've learned to cherish as you've grown older. I read every one. It reminds me that even in a quiet house, none of us are ever truly alone.